Welcome back to the League of Legends Championship Series. My name is Quickshot, joined by JCap, LOL, and Karalius. You're back on the desk. Just before we start talking about the game, it is St. Patrick's Day. I'm very, very angry myself that I have not remembered this earlier and actually said it to everybody on stream. But base race. Okay. Let's start at the end and then work our way to the beginning. Talk us through the decision. Who made the call to go, and how was it luck that it worked, or did you know you were going to get it?
We were trying to get something done because we were behind, and we saw two of their strongest champs stop, Nasus and Singed. And Freddy was like, let's push middle, YOLO, and that's it.
Now, were the words YOLO actually spoken?
Yeah, they were.
I'm not sure whether that is impressive or sad. Now,
it worked?
What were you thinking? Okay, talk me through, as you walked into the room, we were talking about it, and I overheard you saying it was the most intense and exciting 10 seconds of the day, and your hands were still shaking. So
I think it did one of these too.
From the moment you pushed that inner turret till the moment the Nexus blew up, what were you doing? Where were you looking on the map? What were you thinking?
There's not very much thought. You just pop everything to kill the tower and the Nexus as fast as you can. We didn't even see our base. There was no peeking into our base. We just all focused on the Nexus. And when we saw Singed backed, we knew we have it. Because if they backed, that means they're hesitated, and we got it. So I don't even know if it was close or not, but it was just tunnel vision into the Nexus, that's it.
Would you like to know how close it was?
Yeah, I would.
Well, your Nexus had 10 HP left.
No,
I know it did. They actually just got into the Nexus, starting to do damage to it, so you guys were ahead by quite a bit.
Yeah, they hadn't started hitting your Nexus at all. They were just about to take out the second turret. So I guess the commitment, the fact that you dove in with Freddy making the call and saying, look, just go, YOLO.
Yeah, well,
does he usually make those pressure calls? Who would usually make those high pressure calls like Baron now or base race or that kind of thing in the late game?
It depends. I usually make the calls when not to do Baron because I'm designated that role. When we're in bad spot, we shouldn't do Baron. I'm the one that should tell it. But in this case, we all knew that base race was very good for us because MF was stacking only AD, no attack speed. And we have Jarvan to buff attack speed, we have Twitch with attack speed, and we have
a Kayle who built full attack speed.
Yeah.
So we win in the base race, and we started off a bit earlier too. So we kind of knew it was in favor of us, so we just took the chance.
Well, it was awesome. It was really, really exciting to watch. Let's talk about Thresh. Yeah. You did not get to play Sona. Played Thresh this particular matchup. How much have you played Thresh? How does he fit into the Against All Authority roster and lineup and things like that?
Well, Thresh is a completely different champ than Sona, but he can serve also the same purpose as Sona. He can initiate fights, he can defend your AD, he has utility beyond that, like with the Lantern, save someone. The only thing he doesn't have is the auras, but that's the different champ. That's pretty much it. But I really like Thresh. I played him a lot. This was the first time I got to play him, actually. I'm really happy I did.
I have to ask this still. How did it feel to beat Dragonborns yet again? Because you haven't met them in LCS yet, but you met them in the qualifiers, and you actually knocked them out after they... Yeah. Well, you didn't knock them out, technically. But they won the first game. They celebrated. They were so excited. They got pumped, and then you won the next two games. How does it feel to do that yet again to them?
It was probably the most important match for us so far, because we have wins against SKG, we have losses against other teams, but this was the only team we haven't played yet, and we are very similar in the league standings.
Actually, I'll tell you about that right now. Just before we were starting it, both teams were sitting on 4 wins, 7 losses, ranked 5th and ranked 6th in the League of Legends Championship Series. So for the league for the season, this was the game to decide who takes the 5th spot and secures it, because you guys are now 5-7 and they are now 4-8.
Yeah.
So you've really given yourselves a nice big jump.
Actually, over this weekend, you went from 7th place now to 5th in the standings.
I think so.
Yeah.
What is the goal now? You're sitting in that 5th position. You have taken wins off some of the biggest teams, the biggest names here in the LCS, and you're approaching this halfway mark in terms of your games. Do you want to be in the top 4, or are you happy with 5th?
Never happy with 5th when you can take top 4, but the main goal now is to actually start playing the game so we wouldn't have to base race, because we actually were in trouble that game. We were behind, we were losing fights we shouldn't have, so just train and be more solid against these teams, and then maybe we can actually give a Gambit a run for their money.
And I have a question for you, because we've seen you over the first, 3 or 4 weeks. You guys were actually playing in our studio since you don't have your gaming house just yet. And we constantly saw you till 1 a.m., 2 a.m. practicing, going over the replays and stuff like that. How is it now that you guys have a gaming house, you guys can finally relax a little bit, not have to worry about that, and get some good training in?
Well, we just moved in. We had like only 2 days, but right now we'll have a full week of just uninterrupted practice. So it's awesome to be in a house, not to live in a hotel. Actually have, right now we can wake up, play solo queue, play scrims, and go to bed. That's ideal for nerds like us.
It's really, really helpful. In terms of your practice schedule now, you said you've just moved in. Have you guys started to put down some thoughts and some ideas about how many hours per day you want to, practice solo queue, practice scrims? Are you putting a regimented practice schedule in place, or are you just winging it?
The biggest thing we want to do is to scrim as much as possible, because if we can only scrim, it's still better than like solo queue and stuff. But it's not possible, just not. So whenever we have time, we play solo queue, duo queue, whatever. But we try to find as many scrims as possible. That's our plan. We don't really have a schedule or anything. We just, everyone sleeps.
Just look for games.
Yeah.
If there's teams that are willing to play you, that's where you're going to
And speaking of that, what teams do you actually do you practice against? Because we've had a lot of people say we practice against Meet Your Makers, Alternate, because they're not in LCS. You don't have to worry about any strats being leaked. But what do you guys do?
We so far in the whole 4 weeks had 4 scrims. Twice against EG, like a few games, sessions. Once against Wolves and once against Giants. That's it.
Now, okay, we're talking about other teams, talking about who you practice against and scrimming partners and whatnot. We're heading to Lille, France next weekend. LCS is going to be going on a little road trip. And we're going to be seeing these Challenger Circuit teams actually competing there. And some of the confirmed teams, MYM, TCM, it's a team that used to be called as Hey, I Just Met You, Alternate, and Mistral. When was the last time you played against any of these teams?
Before the qualifier.
And so it's a long time since you've played these guys. What are you expecting from them then, knowing what we've seen from the Intel Extreme Masters World Championships?
Well, I don't know. If they're going to play against LCS teams someday, I expect them to know every ban and pick we would ever do, because it's all there. What might give them trouble is ending games, just like every new team right now in the LCS. That's the biggest problem for new teams. Don't know how to end games, even
just base race.
Yeah, solution found.
And speaking of that, I mean, because we have to look at it this way. I mean, you guys always have, every team has potential to go into the relegation matches. These teams, MYM, Alternate, and TCM, have all played in the qualifiers for LCS, and unfortunately didn't get in, but they've had this time to sit back and look at every single match every team's played. They have that information advantage on you. How would you guys overcome that against a team?
Yeah, we talked about it quite a bit too. Whoever has to qualify again from LCS right now gonna have a huge disadvantage in the requalifier, just because of that reason. They know everything about us. We know nothing about anyone else. So it's gonna be a real hard job to requalify. So that's why this league means so much. You cannot lose your spot.
How would you actually prepare for that? Let's say hypothetically you were in that position and you had to face off against one of these teams. Is it better to go for a brand new composition that has never been done in LCS? Or is it better to just play your best and hope it's strong enough?
I think it's the best to play your most solid game you can. Because as I said, LCS teams will get a lot of experience. Everyone will get better at finishing games and building up an advantage and using it. But those new teams, this will still be their biggest weakness. So if you play solid early, don't give an advantage, you're supposed to win like mid-late game against these teams. So ideally, play solid and just don't make mistakes and capitalize on the enemy mistakes. That's it.
And looking back at your history as a team, I mean, you guys had to bring in a new jungler like a couple days before the qualifiers actually happened. And look at yourselves then and look at yourselves now. How has this time, this being a professional League of Legends player, improved you guys as a team? Like, do you look back and like, wow, we were terrible then, or we're amazing now, kind of thing?
It's still very hard to say, because like one day we lose to whatever team, then we win against whatever. It's really hard to like evaluate your skill level. Like in the qualifier, I feel we played really well, kind of because our picks were spot on for our play style and that patch. Right now we're mixing it up a bit, so it's really hard to say. But one thing I know for sure, we got a lot more experience, and that, like, we would beat our previous like qualifier selves easily.
That's an amazing line. The ability to look back and say, well, I know individually and as a team, we have more experience and knowledge.
And that was the big thing that everyone was worried about is when LCS comes, you're going to have those top 4 teams, you know, that you've always known of, always heard of playing against these other 4 teams. And we're always worried about the skill difference, but we've seen it in LCS in Europe and North America. It's really close. The gap has really changed. And we're seeing a lot of the lesser known teams, you know, kick the crap out of these top tier teams.
Well, let's actually touch on that for a very quick second. We are getting ready for Copenhagen Wolves versus Fnatic. Copenhagen Wolves have beaten them before. I'm sure you were watching the game.
Yeah.
In your opinion, can the Wolves do it again now?
I don't know. I don't think so. I actually
Why
don't
not?
think so.
Why not?
Fnatic are on a roll. Like, they're winning games. They're backdooring every game too. So, and that's so annoying to deal with. I don't know if Copenhagen Wolves can actually build up an advantage early and then like do not let Fnatic split push or backdoor. They sure anyone can win, but I really give an advantage to Fnatic this game. Just because they're on, like, this week been very good for them.
Looking really good.
Yeah, so momentum helps too. Like, I give it to Fnatic.
Definitely. Well, it is going to be the last game of a very, very long day. We do apologize about all of the delays and the internet problems. So let's get ourselves ready for the Copenhagen Wolves versus Fnatic. The last time they met, it was a breathtaking match in which Fnatic, you know, they lost to the Wolves because of the base race that was happening early, the teleports, the backdoors, and it wasn't the only win that the Copenhagen Wolves managed to secure themselves via Super Week. They've demonstrated the ability to handle pressure, to control lanes, and to win a game. And some argue that it's thanks to Bjergsen returning to the helm. The underdogs, they've rallied around him. They've started to find their voice, and they've started to howl like real wolves. Let's see what they have to say.